All right, as I previewed in the previous lesson, we're going to talk about quarter note triplets. These are so important, and they're really easy to understand if you look at what we have going on with the standard notation. I want you to look at figures 8A and 8B. In figure 8B, we have notation for quarter note triplets. Now, a quarter note gets one beat, right? But if we group them in a group of three with that little 3 bracket, it means you're going to play 3 notes in the time normally occupied by 2. Well, if you do the math, that means each note is going to get 2/3 of a beat. An easy way to perceive that is to go back to figure 8A and look at how you have a measure of 8th note triplets, those 12 slots again. But what happens? We tie each pair of consecutive 8th notes together. Listen to your accompanying track. Now I've prepared this so the hi-hat is your quarter note. 1, 2, 3. Focus your ear on that. Disregard everything else. Make sure you know that. Okay, it's a 2-measure loop here. In the first measure, you have your 8th note triplets, and then play those. Lay out. In the second measure, we have the figure that you see in both figures 8A and figure 8B. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Now, I'm able to count anything I play. I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you how I feel rhythmically confident because I learned a long time ago that if I can count it, I can play it. I've had so many students, I say the vast majority, indeed the vast majority, probably 98% of people don't want to count. I don't know if they're self-conscious or what it is, but my opinion is if you count it and then you sing it using syllables or da-da-da or something like that, then you can play it because you already have it in your head where you're going to play the thing. It's like you're listening to a CD in your head. You know what the part is. I watched a piano student one time struggle with a rhythm for 20 minutes. I just sat there quietly watching someone I know, and they were practicing and fumbling around, hoping they'd get it. Well, after about 20 minutes, I said, hold on. You're shooting in the dark here. You need to be able to count the rhythm. And they gave me quite a bit of resistance, but they would have never gotten it the other way. If they had ever gotten it, it would have been just luck, and how would they be able to reproduce that? So make sure you know where you are rhythmically. Well, let's apply this rhythm to some chords, and just go our E7. We're going to make it a little more uptown, play an E9 chord. It's a great sounding chord. Okay. If you don't know it, I'll show you. Second finger's on the E, 7th fret of the 5th string. First finger's on the G sharp, 6th fret of the 4th string. And then you're going to bar your 3rd finger over the top 3 strings in the 7th fret. You can deaden the 6th string with your 2nd finger to create a tunnel to make sure you're not muting. And don't flatten that finger because it changes the chord. So this is your moneymaker, the E9 chord. Let's apply this to our slow blues jam track. And as I said earlier, this is a very, very useful tool. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Let's look at it from a solo standpoint. I'm going to play the full measure of 8th note triplets, then I'm going to play the quarter note triplets. creates a little bit of a rhythmic fight because you're accenting in different places. And on that note, I gave you that little story about counting. Well, you heard me count it at a rather brisk tempo. I want you to count right along with me on this. I am going to play figures 8A and actually figure, what figure would that be? It'd be figure 3 and then figure 8A or 8B, just like your little loop was doing. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. You can see that when you're playing the quarter note triplets, you're obviously going to count 1, and then you don't say trip, because that's tied. Then you say let, and you don't say 2, because that's tied. Then you say trip, and you don't say let, because that's tied. Then that whole thing is repeated again, because it turns around on beats by beat 3. So if you don't understand that, you're doing yourself a disservice. These are the kind of figures that you'll hear in like... There I'm going 1, let 2, let 3, let 4, let tap, 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 tap. Okay? And just as a point of reference, the great Doors tune, Love Me 2 Times, has those quarter note triplets in there. But on purpose, the band dragged them. They didn't keep them in the pocket. Now, there's an example of changing the time for a particular effect. But have your clicks going. And back on this groove, you know, I talked about you listening to what was going on with this little drum groove that I had. Let's listen to this. That hi-hat is your pulse, right? 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. Go back. Just play those. Now let's have some fun. These are quarter notes. A little test here. Can you do this without getting lost? Focus your ear on that hi-hat. All right, now let's play the triplets. Keep playing them. Did you land back where you're supposed to? Or did you get confused with those quarter note triplets? Now swing 8. Are you getting lost? Now watch what I'm going to do. To me, now we're getting to the good stuff of it so far. I've been going on here for what, almost like 60 minutes in this video course, right? That lesson just in is when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. If you can do what I just did, playing against this little jam track, and you can play quarter notes and never get lost. You can play swing 8s and never get lost. You can play 8th note triplets and never get lost. You can play quarter note triplets and never get lost. And you can go back and forth with absolute confidence. You have accomplished something, and my hat's tipped to you, because that means that you could go ahead and use that internal clock of what you're hearing, all that subdivision, and not float around, stay in the groove. And also, you could be a real strong asset to a band. Now, I'm going to say something right now, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but drummers have always loved working with me because I started off as a drummer, and rhythm rules. So they didn't have to worry about me floating. Violinists that I work with, I remember they'd say, you know, we're used to working with other classical guitar players and people who don't groove as much. They can take liberties and feel certain that when they come back, it's going to be right in the pocket. So know your role, and you will be a real asset and a joy for other musicians to work with. And don't think it's going to put you in a box and restrict you. Once you can do this, you can start floating and doing whatever you want, going inside and out, and come back and know where one is. We've all heard drummers, two different kinds of drummers, those that can keep time and those that can't. Unfortunately, we've all had to work with some who can't keep time. I tell my students, if you're working with a drummer that can't keep time, find a new drummer, because it'll kill you. If the drummer plays and he or she plays a fill and comes back in and it's not on one, you know what an unsettling feeling that is for you over there in the guitar chair, and the bass player hates it too, because suddenly you have to bend to accommodate. But if you've got a drummer that you know, no matter what they do, they're going to be back on one, that's when it gets to be fun playing on stage. And this is in any style of music. So I keep harping on this rhythm thing, but that's what this whole course is about, getting absolutely confident in your rhythm. All right, so we just talked about quarter note triplets. We talked about putting them in rhythm guitar, putting them in your lead guitar, and there's a lot of stuff you can do here that's going to help you. Well, now the next part of this series or group of lessons is when we start getting into groupings of these eighth note triplets. This is pretty slick, so it helps you play some figures that you might not normally play, or it keeps you from getting lost. Before, listen to what I'm going to tell you, don't go any further until you can do what I just demonstrated, along with this, and that you can count it and you know exactly what you're doing. That might take you a week, 2 weeks, I don't care, whatever it takes, because if you venture on into the next few lessons, if you're lost rhythmically, you're really hurting yourself. You're not doing yourself any kind of favor. So get rock solid on this stuff, and then we'll get into some of these other lines in the next few lessons.